I'm Al Sutherland with the Mesonet Weather Report. Here we are in the middle of December with the end of the year fast approaching, and it seemed like a perfect time to go back and compare this year's soil moisture to last year's. Our first map is a 10-inch fractional water index map, and if you think of 0.5 as about the midway on this particular measure, then in 2011 we had only 7 locations out of 92 on the Mesonet that had a 0.5 or less. Lots of dark green on this map, lots of good soil moisture. Comparing that to the 10-inch fractional water index map for a year ago, 2010, in mid-December, we can see 21 Mesonet locations out of 92 came in at 0.5 or less, and those are scattered a little bit more evenly across the state rather than being concentrated out in the west as they are this year. Dropping down to the 24-inch depth, we can see dark green on the east side of the state, and we can really see how those dry soils at 24 inches are concentrated in the western part of the state. On this map, 17 locations had 0.5 or less. This is out of 81 Mesonet sites on this map. Going back a year to 2010, we can see during that time there were 28 sites out of the 81 that had a 0.5 or less. And again, we see at 24 inches that we had dry soils out in the Panhandle, down through the central part of the state, and over in the eastern side of the state. So they were more spread out in 2010, very concentrated in the west in 2011. Another index we use at the Mesonet for drought is the Keach-Byram Drought Index. That one goes from 0 when things are really good and moist to 800 when things are really dry. We can see out west those purple colors, that's really dry on this scale. Hooker comes in at 724, the driest location in the state. As we look across the state to the east, we have 53 locations that are below 100. 19 of those are at 0. And that really shows how those rains in November and December have really made a difference in our drought situation in the central and eastern part of the state. Jumping back a year for our Keach-Byram Drought Index, we can see that only 3 Mesonet sites were calculated to be below 100 on this scale. And we can see that broad area across the state of those lighter colors. Not a lot of green on this map. We don't see the extremes out in the Panhandle, and this is really representative of the beginning of our drought last winter, and we went through a very, very dry winter into a dry summer. So for soil moisture for this December 2011, we are in a lot better shape in the central and eastern part of the state. Still some concerns when we get out into the western part of Oklahoma, and very much some definite concerns out in the Panhandle. Gary, as the holidays approach, what do you have for us on summarizing the rain for the year?
Howdy folks, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all. We're getting very close to the end of the year, so we're starting to be able to tell where we're going to end up for 2011, at least as far as precipitation wise. But first, let's look a little bit at December, or at least the first couple of weeks. Now, it's been pretty good so far in December. Everybody's gotten a little bit of rainfall, a little bit of snow here and there, and some have had a mixture of both. But at least on the statewide average, we've had about 1.28 inches. And that's still a little bit below normal, which is 2.04 inches for the entire month. But we'd still have, a couple of weeks to go, so we might catch up a little bit there at the end. It's certainly been an active fall and early winter season, so I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibilities. Now for the year, we're at a statewide average of 24.18 inches, which is 11 inches below normal and good for about the 10th driest year on record since 1895. But remember, we still have a couple of weeks left to go where we could add to those totals a little bit. The driest part of the state is most definitely the Panhandle, where they have an average precipitation for the year of 8.71 inches. Now that's the driest on record dating back to 1895. The second dry ice is 8.98 inches, set back in 1910. So with a couple of weeks left to go, let's hope they get some rainfall and actually drop down to second place on that list. The totals for individual locations for the year vary greatly. We go from more than 55 inches over in far east central Oklahoma at Westville to 5.3 inches at Hooker in the Oklahoma Panhandle. Now the lowest total for any individual location in the history of the state is 6.5 inches, set at Rainier back in 1956. So Hooker is still unfortunately on pace to break that record. As for the last 2 weeks of December, if the rest of 2011 is a gauge, we should be prepared for just about anything. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.